All right, can we give the band a hand? Watch online, you can do the holy hands or whatever. I love C3 because, I've been up there before during Easter, and it's like the Song of Revelation. I don't know, the Amazing Grace gospel, and people are like, yeah, it's pretty good. But then you do Africa, I hear people cheering. One lady was crying. Hold on, no. They do a great job. Thankful for them, what they do. So with that kind of phrase, we kick off this series, One Hit Wonders. We're talking about a lot of books in the Bible or just one book, talking about some kind of unknown minor prophet books, some small, like obscure stuff that most people don't know. So to do that, here's what I want to kick it off with. How many of you were ever a groupie? And if you're online, you can put the hands up. How many of you were ever a groupie, like growing up? Any groupies in the house? Any just like complete fanatical fans? Like you really, nobody? So here, let's do this. How many of you had either an actor, actress, sports like hero, somebody growing up that you just like, I know we're in church, idolized? Anybody? Hand? Okay. Now there's 9 of you. Really? Come on. All right, those of you who raise your hand, give it to me. If you're online, type it. I want to hear who. Just throw some names. Throw their way. Come on. So, what? Jessica Simpson. Okay, I like that one. I remember the old cleaning house. Seen that picture? Okay, anyone else? Anyone? Nobody? Pete Rose? Joe, that surprised me. You threw Pete Rose. I like that. Oh, Charlie Hustle back there. Good job. Anybody else? Okay, now it's starting into a hootenanny. Everybody's just yelling stuff at me. One more. Who is it? Now we're just doing the Reds theme, and then I heard the old Robert Redford in the back, right? So people start dating themselves a little bit too. You guys are much younger, at least, watching online in the crowd, than the first service. It was like, Fred Astaire. I like that Charlie Chaplin from the old silent films. Like, gosh, you guys are out of it, right? So I don't know if you heard about this, but a few weeks back, there was a concert in Cincinnati. Some little artist no one's heard of named Taylor Swift. Anyone hear about that concert? If you like it, you're in. If you didn't like it, you just got mad at everybody posting in their cowboy boots and their glitter and like it's stupid, right? But here's the thing. I had my daughter actually went to that concert, but the night before, my niece went to the concert, and when she came back, she told my wife, I'm going to quote my niece, okay? Here's what my niece said. She said, that concert was the greatest day of my life and will continue to be so. She said, I may have children, right? I probably will. I may get married. Who knows? None of those days will compare to the concert. She literally said that, right? And my daughter came back. She said, it's so amazing, it's so good, so awesome. And the reason I share that with you, because it's funny to me, like I watch all these people. My daughter is one of them. And she's like, oh, I love her. And she's so good. Her songs are so good. And she's just such good relationship advice. I mean, she's never in one, right? But sure, yeah, let's listen to that. But here's why I want to look at like these girls, because I don't care. It's good. We all like, I was a football guy. So, for me, it's like, Barry Sanders, like if I could meet Barry Sanders, it'd be the greatest day of my life. So I get it. But I want to say, like, you guys love this girl so much, but she doesn't love you. And the reason I know she doesn't love you, she don't know you, right? Pardon the grammar there. She doesn't know you. Like, it doesn't work. But that's what really a groupie is. It's like these fanatical fans are just like, I love them. I want to be near them. I just want to marry. Like, you can go down the line. It's just like, I can't get enough of them. And it's kind of sad from the outside for us looking in, because it's like you love them with such dying devotion, yet they don't care or even know who you are. Now, here's the crazy part. I'm going to read a little obscure verse real quick. No one's ever heard of it. It's in the book of John 3:16. It says, for God so loved, I underline that. God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Now I'm not calling God a groupie. I'm not. And I don't want to be sacrilegious. But I want you to think about this for a second. Let's just go from a human standpoint. With this verse by itself, you could look at God and say, wait a minute, God, I'm just a human, but could I throw just a possible suggestion here? You're telling me you're going to give your one and only Son, literally the love, like you guys have been in the Trinity since the beginning of time, you're going to send him to earth To die for a group of people that may not even return the favor? You're going to die for a group of people who may say, I don't even like God. You're going to die for people who can shake their fists at you every single day when you know you're the one giving them bread. God, you're going to do that? No offense, but that sounds kind of like that weird relationship where it's like you're giving way more than they're ever going to give back. And I think that's the beauty of the story we're going to look at today is God's like, I know. That's the whole point. That's what the gospel is. It's such good news. So love. So love. So love. What is love? We say love all the time. You and I, we all do this, right? Say, I love Casa Grande, right? And at the same time, you're like, and I love my wife. Those are equal, right? Some of you are like, no. Casa's much better than my wife. I will leave my wife one day. Carlos, I'll never leave you, right? And Carlos, they owe me, don't they? Right? That's some good advertisement right there. But we say love for everything. Oh, I just love that song. So love. So love. So love. What truly is this concept of love? We're going to be in the book of Hosea today, and we're going to be in chapter 3. And before, if you got a Bible, you can turn there. If not, just kind of bear with me for a second. But I want to explain, in the Bible, you have like the first 5 books. You can go down. I'm not going to bore you with all this, but just so you know. Then you got into what was called the prophets. There's the major and the minor prophets. Now, they're only called major and minor because of the size of the books. So the major prophets are these big books, and then the minor prophets are these tiny, tiny books. Well, Hosea is one of the minor prophets. And to kind of explain to you what a prophet is, and I hate doing this. I know a lot of pastors do it and speakers, and it's cool. I don't mind it. I just don't like it. I don't like when people say, back in 1922, like tell weird old stories. But I'm going to real quick, okay? So in 1936... and this, everything I've read says it's true. Look it up, prove me wrong. But they said King Edward was giving a speech. And it was kind of the first time they're going to broadcast it to the known world. So they're literally going to relay, this is going to be live. They're going to send the message, obviously through cable, to the U.S., New York City, New York. Then they're going to actually stream it, and post it. So the world's going to get to hear this message. Big time in the world, a lot of stuff going on. King Edward, big speech. And the story is, like 15, 20 seconds before it's about to happen, this guy accidentally severs the main line. Completely severed. So they walk in and they're like, we are 10 seconds out from the speech. There's no recording. There's no, internet. It's like, we can't get it. And supposedly the story is, a guy was standing there, and maybe the guy that did it, but literally he just grabs both ends of both cables and holds them. And they said for that speech for however long, 4 or 5 minutes, this low voltage current actually ran through his body, and everyone heard the message. He held on to it. Now, whether you like that story or not, or even care, the reason I tell you that's what a prophet was in the Old Testament. In the Old Covenant, God brought these prophets along, and basically you had God and you had people, and they were kind of the conduit of a message from God. Now, the prophets would do a few things. They would either give prophecy. So they'd say, hey, I just want you guys to know in about 300 years, there's going to be a famine, or God's going to destroy the land, whatever. They would tell that. Some would just preach. They'd be like, I want you to know, like God's telling you, you're made for more than this. This isn't the life He's called you to live. And then the last one was demonstrate. That's the tough one. So sometimes God would actually make these prophets become and demonstrate visibly to the world what was going on. So Hosea is a prophet of God. He's literally like the Billy Graham, the Charles Stanley of the day, like very obviously popular. People are like, that's God's man. So in Hosea 1, God comes up to Hosea and he says, okay, here's your assignment. You're a prophet. Yes, God. You're my mouthpiece. Yes, sir. You'll do what I ask you to do. You got it, God. Whatever it is. Great. I want you to marry a prostitute. Hold on, God. Maybe I had a bad burrito. Maybe I'm not hearing you right, but did you say marry a princess? Right? And God said, no. I want you, I know this is crazy, I want you to literally marry a prostitute. Here's the bad news, Hosea. Not only will you marry her, you're going to have kids with her. These kids, it's going to be questionable, read chapter 2, it's going to be questionable whether they're actually even your kids or not. Because she is going to step out on you all the time. This is your life. Marry the prostitute, let her cheat on you for literally years. That's all you get. Now, you imagine that? I know it's crazy. Nowhere else in the history of the Bible has anything like this ever happened, before or after. But God says, I want to demonstrate how I feel when my people who claim they love me just constantly kind of turn their backs and they forget about me and they claim they're going to do something good and then they don't. And I want you to feel that, we can say it, but Hosea, you're going to feel it because you're going to live it because it's going to be your life. So Hosea has 3 kids. I think 2 boys, 2 girls, 1 boy. And they named them the most bizarre, saddest stuff ever. I mean, literally, it's like God's left us is one of the girls' names. And back then, you gave names to people like that was very, like, it was kind of like a God-given thing. Like if a mom was super depressed and like didn't want to live anymore, it was dangerous because she could name her kid like the one nobody loves. Well, Hosea's name actually meant salvation. So you have salvation having all these illegitimate kids, possibly, and their names are like, the God who, like, of no more. God's not our God anymore. I mean, it's just terrible, terrible stuff. Well, she continues to cheat. She continues to do her thing. And it finally gets so bad that she leaves him. Now, I was thinking about this, and I just want to give you this picture. I've done a lot of weddings in my life. I've done several even in here. And I got to thinking about just like this whole picture is crazy to me. I want you to picture, I've done some bizarre weddings, okay? I did a cowboy wedding, and at the end of the cowboy wedding, I literally, to myself, we prayed. I said, you may kiss the bride. They walked off. People were clapping on hay bales. Everybody's dressed like Marlboro Man. And I remember just in my mind, I was like, they'll never make it. Those 2 have been married for like 40 years now. I'm not kidding, like literally forever. One asked me to do a superhero wedding once. Like, hey, she's going to be dressed as, like, I think it was like some, what's the one with the lasso, right? Wonder Woman, yeah, the lasso, and he was going to be like, I think Spider-Man. I was like, is he wearing the full? Yeah, he's going to wear everything. I made something up to not be there for that one because I'm like, that is just bizarro, right? But think about this wedding, because I've done a lot, even here. Here's how it works. I'm usually dressed up. I got the only black suit that I own. I always keep a black Bible so everything meshes together. And I'm like, hey, friends and family. And I've got Hosea here beside me, and he's nervous because he's a prophet of God. And he doesn't even know how sure this wedding thing is going to be, right? And kind of freaking out. And here's what you do in the wedding. You say, okay, and you guys don't have to. You've been up and down a bunch. But you say, everybody rise because that door is going to open and the bride's going to come through. Now, I want you to imagine, this is the way I picture, okay? Hosea seems nervous, almost like he doesn't want to go through with this. That thing opens up. She's not wearing white, right? And the music starts playing. This is what it would sound like. As we gather, please rise. She opens the door and comes in. Right? And the reason I say that because I can't imagine this wedding. I really can't. I can't imagine. Does she have her head down the whole time? Is she like, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know why we should do this. So this story is so tough, so tough. And I want to give you that backdrop because what God's going to show us is several, literally thousands of years before Jesus even came on the scene, he's like, I want my people to know how much I truly love them. I want my people to know the heartbreak I feel. So love. So love. I want to talk about in Hosea chapter 3, so love. So love, just so we all get a definition of really kind of what love means. So love chases. Love chases. Love doesn't give up. And those of you who have kids, you know this, right? You don't give. Now, and I know some of you are here like, you don't know, my dad walked out on us, right? I never knew my mom. I get it. I know. But I'm saying for those of you in here, like, we just try to be even decent parents in this room, right? You know this. Like, I'm not going to give up on my kids. I give up on anybody else before I give up on my kids. Like, if you told me right now, like, hey, your daughter just left. She ran away from home, and she's in San Antonio, and who knows what she's doing. You know what I would do? Even if it's not safe, same thing many of you are going to do in this room. You're going to chase. And this is what God's saying. God's saying, you don't understand the love. So love chases. Verse 1, it says, then the Lord said to me, forgot to mention, she leaves him for, we don't know how long, possibly years. Single dad, prophet of God, embarrassed, ashamed. And God says, oh, hold on. I got one more thing for you. So it says, then the Lord said to me, go and find your wife. Go and love your wife again. You kidding me, God? Are you kidding me? God, now you just get to give me commands. I'm the one who has to sit in the house when my daughter says, hey, Dad, where's Mom? I don't know. I probably can guess better who she's with than I can guess where she's at, but I don't know. By the way, I forgot to tell you guys, this woman's name, his wife, her name was Gomer. Now, if your name's Gomer in here, I'm not even going to apologize. Your parents did not love you, okay? I mean, could you imagine holding a baby like, there's Gomer? Horrible, right? But literally, so like, where's Mom? So all this heartbreaking, and God says, no, I want you now, you're going to go back. Chapter 2 is all about just kind of God showing like the fury, the anger, how much like you've turned your back on me. It's like literally this guy just heartbroken. It goes down. Then it finally gets to this point. Verse 3 says, I want you to go love your wife again, even though she commits adultery with another lover. Right now, as we're speaking, I'm not going to lie to you, Hosea, she's probably with somebody. And then he says this, this will illustrate, so this is why I'm doing this. This will illustrate that the Lord still loves Israel. Now, this is the Old Covenant, Old Testament. And the New Testament, just so you guys know, most of the time, Israel is a shadow or some kind of picture of the church. So this is us. This is God's children. He says, I want you to know this is how much I love them, even though the people have turned to other gods and love to worship them. For God so loved the world, so loved that we chase. God says, I'm not going to let you guys stay in your mess. I love you too much. So love. So love chase. So love, what it was. So love cost. I love my kids. I have 2 of them. But I promise you one thing. They are not cheap. They are not. Or you guys have kids, you know this. No one told me feeding kids was that expensive. Right? Could you guys please just eat half a pizza? Could you please, like, it's amazing. It costs. But you know what? You're glad to pay that. You are. So love costs. So he goes back, and this is crazy to me. This is the gospel. Hosea buys back something that in that culture was his. And God, if you remember from the beginning of time, God said, no, I created you in my image. You're mine. You're my children. But then we see when Jesus comes along that he buys his own back. He buys back what he already owns. So I bought her back. And this gets weird, verse 2. He says, so I bought her back for 15 pieces of silver, 5 bushels of barley, and a measure of wine. I looked that up because I'm like, why does he give such a, is that just a dude? Well, I paid $8.32, and then I threw in my watch. No. I read this. If you look at Old Testament, this time period, that was the price for a common slave. Typically, that nobody wanted. So Gomer's got herself in such a mess that she's now either has a John or a pimp or something that now like literally owns her, like literally like sex trade kind of industry. So he goes back. And I want you to imagine being Hosea. And it's like, hey, you're going in the shady part of town. You're the Billy Graham of the nation. You're walking in, red light district. It's shady, a lot of stuff going on. And you've got to say, have you seen Gomer? Could you imagine talking to a guy and he's like, yeah, I don't know where she is now, but I saw her last night. Why? Well, she's my wife. Dude, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I was just with her last week. I promise you, man, I didn't know that's your wife. Do you imagine that? He's got to walk through, and it gets so bad he finally walks up, and they're like, yeah, you can have her back. You just got to buy her back. So Hosea tells us, he says, I literally bought her back for the price of a slave that nobody wants. Now this is pretty heartbreaking as you think about this. He says, then I said to her, you must live in my house for many days, and you're going to stop the stuff that you're doing. There's not going to be any relations, not with me, not with anybody. Why? Because that's what love does. Love changes us, right? Love changes us. So love changes us. He says, you're not who you think you are. Oh, wait, by the way, I forgot to mention this too. You know what Gomer means? So Hosea means salvation. You know what Gomer means? Finished. Do you imagine standing up on the block and you look up and you see your husband and you're like, oh, here it goes. Now he's got all the ammo in the world. He can just berate me and they can send me off or whatever they want to do with me. Head down in shame. Why? Because your name means finished. She's like, I knew this about my life from day one. I'm finished. Here's what it says. Verse 4 says, this shows that Israel will go a long time without a king or a prince, and without sacrifices, sacred pillars, priests, or even idols. But afterward, the people will return and devote themselves to the Lord their God, and to David's descendant, their king. Anyone know what they're talking about there? Jesus is always referred to in the Old Covenant as David's descendant, or David, the Messiah king. It says, in the last days, this is the good news today, okay? It says, in the last days, they will tremble in awe, in fear, in awe, in amazement of the Lord. See, in the Old Covenant, people feared God because God is God. God can do whatever he wants, right? But he says, here's the way the new covenant, this new contract is going to be. It's so good because in the new contract, you will literally be in awe of the Lord, talking about Jesus and his goodness. See, here's the cool part to me. Hosea means salvation. Gomer means finished. Salvation, finished, polar opposites until they come back together. When Gomer finally purchases her and says, no, you're mine, and you don't have to be like this anymore. You know what happens when this gets together? Now you get salvation. It's finished. See, this is the good news. This is the picture God wanted to give to us. So just real quick today, as I close, I want to share, okay, this part, because there's a story of Jesus that I think so awesomely gives it. Jesus, I truly believe in this moment, and he probably didn't, but it's in my mind the way I picture it. I think when Jesus said this phrase, I think he literally winked at God. Because they had an inside joke, an inside line that no one else would have really probably fully understood. See, this is what it says in Matthew. Jesus, and if you don't get anything else today, if you're watching online, never come back. You're like, I'm never walking in another door of a church. Okay, here's what I want you to hear, though. I want you to understand who Jesus is. Not what you've been told, maybe not what you've even been told in a church. I'm not saying people are wrong. I'm just saying from the New Testament, because here's who Jesus is. Jesus comes on the scene, and religious people don't like him. Because he's like, there's a new sheriff in town. There's a new priest. There's new laws. There's literally a new contract between God. That's how it's going to work. Yeah, but we're so good. You're not. Even though you try to be good, you're not good. And then they're like, but here's another thing, Jesus, we have a problem. If you claim to be the Son of God, why in the world are you hanging out with the scum of the earth? So this is where the story takes place. It says, well, Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house. In verse 10, many tax collectors, the worst of the worst, sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners and scum? He can't be the Son of God. The Son of God would never do that. Right? And here's what I love. So Jesus is just kind of taking this in. They're all kind of to the disciples because they don't want to square up with him because he's pretty sharp. But he just hears it. And it says, on hearing this, Jesus said, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. He said, here's the thing. Here's who I've come for. I've come for people who need help. And here's the sad part. All of you super religious people, listen to me today. I'm not being mean, but I want us all to hear this here online, to all the churches in the universe, all of us in here. The second we think we don't need help, then we become the Pharisees. The second that we all think that we're too good, or can you believe what he did? The second we get any of that in our mind, we become them. And Jesus said, no. I came not for the healthy. And here's the sad part. None of you are healthy. But I came literally. It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. Now, here's the whole reason I showed that. I underlined this because you guys got to get this. This is so good. This is, I think, the wink moment between Jesus and his Father. He says, but go and learn what this means. If you don't get anything else, understand this about me. He says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Direct quote, Hosea 6:6. You know why I think he gave the wink? Because he was like, Jesus, they're already doing it. They're already questioning why you would be so, literally so intense about coming back and being for all these people that people don't think deserve the time of day. And I guarantee you that's literally, he's paying respect to Gomer and Hosea. He's saying, you guys don't get it. We talked about this thousands of years ago. You see, this is what I'm truly about. When we purchased this building, obviously got a loan through the bank. We're in Huntington. I'm like 20-some years old, young, mid-20s, and I walk in. My wife's with me, a couple of different church leaders, and we're going to sign for this building. So they sat down. There's like 2 lawyers. There's a bank person. There's a lady from the bank. There's everybody. A lot of people sitting around this table. And they're like, okay, Trent, so we're going to have you sign this. Here's what's going on. And they read me like the first part of the first page. So I'm sitting there looking, okay, I'll sign. So I sign it, right? Well, those of you who've ever bought a house or bought something like that, you realize I didn't know it back then. I thought I was done. I get up like, hey, do business. Oh, no. We've only got about 10,000 more pages for you to sign. I got so bored at the end, I didn't care what. They could have said, you'll give your firstborn, you'll give me a kidney, and I don't care. Just get me out of here. I'm signing everything. Why? I remember I got back in the car, and I look at my wife, and I'm thinking, the bank now owns us, right? Because they made me fill out thousands of pages. It felt like thousands. But it was kind of nice. They said, here, you can keep the pen. Thank you, right? But here's the thing. When I got married, you know what I did? I went and literally took one sheet of paper. I signed my name. She signed hers. We stood before God and said, here's what I'm going to vow to do. I'm going to vow to try to love you every day through the good and the bad, the way that God loves us. That's it. Now, the reason I tell you that, because I want you to get that. I think we all want to go back to the old contract. You see, the old contract with God, it was like, we've got the law, we've got the rules, and this is this, and that's what people were like, okay, just be good, and God may be happy with us. And she's like, no, here's the new contract. And he always kind of poses it as a marriage kind of picture. He's like, what is it? It's someone that just says, no, sign once. That's all this is, this concept that I'm going to love you. And here's the best part about this contract. This is kind of deep, but it's awesome. The first contract was basically with God and man, the Old Testament. You know what the new covenant is? God said, I will make a contract with my son. Think how genius that is. He's like, if I make it with you guys, you'll still break the contract. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it with my perfect son. That way it's good forever. So any of us that want to bank on the contract, it's not what we sign. We didn't sign it. Jesus did on the cross. And the reason, I hope you get this, please, there's nothing else. When you walk out these doors, what's this mean for us? It means a couple things. It means, number one, I can't judge you because I'm Gomer just like you. So the second we all get in that little kind of like spiritual and, oh, I can't believe and I would never, and oh, no one in my family would. The second you get into any of that, God's like, no, you missed it. But here's the second thing, more than anything. As you walk out these doors this week, I want you guys to live in the love that God has for you. I want you guys to realize, I don't care how jacked up you are, I don't care what stupid stuff you've been involved in, that God chases you way more than your mom or dad or family member ever will. On the block, head down, in shame, it's finished. And Hosea says, I got it. Perfect picture of one day, 1,000 years later, where it's all of us, head down, literally, slaves to sin. And Jesus says, I got it. I'll pay for it. But this is expensive because I'm going to pay for it with my life. See, this is, I read an old man, and he wrote this. He said, minus the cross, this is maybe one of the most profound pictures of truly how much God loves us in all the Bible. Take it in. Enjoy that. I know. I got to work harder for God. I got to make sure. He said, no. What did Gomer do to deserve any of this? You ready? Here's the good news as we pray. Nothing. It's because she was loved. What do you do to deserve it? Nothing. It's because you're already completely loved by God. So what do? We now show that same love. Hand, God, people. We now are a conduit that shows that kind of love to everybody around us. That's what we're called to do. So if you would just pray with me just a second. God, I thank you. I thank you for this group of people. I thank you for this amazing church. God, just so many people who love so well. The generosity, the way that people step up to help, all the amazing things we see in the community and other churches around us doing such amazing. God, I thank you, but I pray today that, one, we would all be reminded truly how much you love us. And secondly, I pray, God, for somebody in this room or someone online who will reach out to us, send us a message. who maybe feels like they're finished. Maybe they're just in a bad way. Maybe a tough spot. This morning, God, I want them to know that you're chasing them, no matter how far they've gone. If that's you this morning, I'm not going to make you stand up or make a big deal of it, but I do really want to pray for you. If that's you this morning, no one's looking around, if you would just lift your hand and say, Trent, things aren't great. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else say, would you pray for me? I feel like it's finished. I'm hurting, struggling. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Jesus, I pray for those maybe watching online, those in this room, those who raised their hand, those who maybe didn't have the courage or just feel like it's beyond the point of even messing with. I love the fact that you take Hosea to remind Gomer that now instead of her being finished, salvation is finished. And you do the same for us. God, I pray today as we walk out these doors for the remainder of this week, we would be the picture of your love to a world that desperately needs it. Help us to love others the way that you have loved us. And I pray as we close to someone maybe in this room, maybe someone watching online, but you think, oh, I never really went through the procedure. I've never taken all these steps. Here's what Jesus says to you. Anyone who comes to me, anyone. Think back to this verse. For God so loved the world that whoever believes in me. Not a prayer, not a commitment, but you're just putting your trust in Him this morning. So if that's you maybe want to say a prayer, something like this. Jesus, I know I've messed up. I've made a mess of things, but I'm asking you this morning to save me. Jesus, thank you for forgiving and saving me. And before we all look up, if you for the first time, if you're online, reach out to us. If you're here, let us know. We want to help you. But if you did that for the first time in your life, we want to celebrate. If that's you, if you would, just lift your hand and say, Trent, first time in my life, my faith and trust in Jesus. It's Him. Awesome. Awesome. Jesus, so thankful for the lives you continue to change. So thankful for what we see. I pray today, God, help us. Help us to remember we're all Gomers. Every one of us in here. And that's the love we get to show to others, because once you redeem us, now we get to live in that and show others the same. Help us to be your love to the world this week. We ask these things in your name, and amen. Guys, have a great week. Can't wait for week 2, one-hit wonders. Great week. We'll see you then.